The Vault of Silence had no light of its own. It orbited a dead star at the edge of the Kesserine expanse, a black moon of alloy and memory. And every civilization that found it left the same way, quieter than when they arrived. Ambassador Reya Voss floated through its central chamber, her breath fogging inside her helmet, watching 31 species tell her, in 31 dying voices, the same thing. The recordings were not ordered. They were confessions. "We watched them for 600 years, said a voice like grinding stone, the last transmission of the Urkalanth, extinct 9,000 years. We called them primitive. We were wrong. We did not fail because they were strong. We failed because we mistook their stillness for weakness." Voss had heard this warning in 30 other tongues. Every extinct race that had ever turned its eyes toward the third planet of a yellow star called Sol had left the same final message, carved into the same wall, broadcast into the same silence. For whoever came next to find Earth only pretends to sleep. She did not believe it. Not yet. 6 months later, she stood on the command deck of the assembly warship Providence's Edge, arguing with a man who had never lost a war. Fleet Marshal Dorian Kell was young for his rank, decorated, brilliant, and utterly certain. The assembly, a coalition of 11 spacefaring species who had carved up half the galaxy in careful, bloodless treaties, had watched humanity for 80 years. Humans had barely left their solar system. They squabbled among themselves. They had no unified government, no standing battle fleet, no weapon that could touch a dreadnought. Their children playing with fire, Kell said, studying the tactical display of the Sol system glowing above the table. 8 billion of them, and not one warship worth the name. Then explain the vault, Voss said. Superstition. Extinct races blaming a myth for their own mistakes. 31 species, Marshal. 31, across 9,000 years, none of whom ever met each other. None of whom shared a language, a biology, or a border, and they all wrote the same 3 words before they died. Voss leaned over the table. It only sleeps. Kell smiled the way powerful men smile at things they've already decided not to fear. Then we'll be the ones who finally wake it up and see nothing happens. The vote passed the Assembly Council 4 days later, 7-4. Voss cast one of the 4. It didn't matter. The fleet moved anyway. 140 warships, curved like black teeth, sliding out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system on a gray October morning that Earth would remember for the rest of its history. Commander Elias Whitfield was 41 years old, flying a 200-year-old design of interceptor with a coffee stain on the dash. When the alerts lit up every screen on the planet at once, he didn't panic. Neither did anyone else, not really. Not after the first hour, when the shape of what was happening settled into something the human animal actually recognized. Not an abstraction, not a treaty violation. A larger predator, at the door, certain of the outcome. Humanity has spent its entire recorded history being underestimated by things bigger than itself. Ice ages, predators with better teeth, empires with better armies. Every single time, the answer had not been strength. It had been refused. All defense wings. "This is command," came the voice over every channel. Calm and flat, Rear Admiral Grace Okafor, 73 years old, who had spent 40 of those years training for a day she'd hoped would never come and preparing anyway because hope was not a strategy. "They think we're asleep. Let's not correct that assumption until it's too late for them to use it." It was. Voss would later realize, watching from the assembly bridge in cold and mounting confusion, the strangest battle plan she had ever seen. Earth's ships did not meet the fleet head-on. They vanished, not retreated, vanished, scattering into the debris fields of the outer planets, into the radiation shadow of Jupiter's moons, into the asteroid belt's endless maze, using terrain the way no assembly commander had ever trained to fight against, because no assembly world had terrain like this to hide in. Humans had spent 80 years quietly mapping every rock, every gravitational eddy, every blind spot in their own backyard, because they had never once believed the peace outside their windows was permanent. Where did they go? Kell demanded, watching his sensor returns dissolve into static and ghost signals. Everywhere, Voss said quietly. That's the point. They came back in pieces. A destroyer's engine core detonated from the inside. A saboteur drone no larger than a human fist having ridden in on a supply shuttle 6 weeks earlier, before the fleet had even left dock, because Earth's intelligence services had known this was coming for a year, and had spent that year doing what humans had always done best in the dark, preparing quietly while everyone assumed they were doing nothing at all. A cruiser lost its shields to a virus buried so deep in its targeting software that no skin had ever found it. planted by a program initiated decades earlier during a supposedly routine trade negotiation, dormant until the exact moment it was needed. And then, worst of all for Kell, came the moment his tacticians had never modeled. Humanity did not fight to win a battle. It fought to make the cost unbearable. Colony defense platforms that should have been trivial to destroy detonated their own reactors rather than surrender, taking 3 warships with them. A civilian freighter, ordered to stand down, rammed a flagship's engine array at full burn. Its crew's final transmission for words long, "We don't retreat here." By the 4th day, Kell had lost 31 ships and gained not 1 inch of Earth's orbital space. By the 6th, he understood, with the particular horror of a man watching his own certainty die in real time, that he was not fighting a defense. He was fighting an idea that refused, structurally, philosophically, at the level of its own architecture, to accept that it could lose. "Pull back," he finally ordered, voice raw. "All ships fall back to the rally point." Nothing answered him from Earth. No triumphant broadcast. No demand for surrender. The remaining human ships simply stopped firing and let the assembly fleet limp away, which was, Voss understood as she watched it happen, its own kind of message. "We didn't need you to grovel. We only needed you to leave." Voss stood alone in the vault of silence 11 months later, having resigned her commission, having spent her severance on passage back to the one place she needed to see again. She recorded her own message this time, hand trembling slightly, as she pressed it into the ancient wall beside 31 others. "We did not lose because they were stronger," she said. "We lost because we measured them by what they showed us. And they have spent their entire history learning to show as little as possible. They do not sleep out of weakness. They sleep because they have learned, over and over, in ice and fire and war after war among themselves, that the ones who scream the loudest are rarely the ones you should fear." She paused, looking at the dark wall, 31 warnings and now 32nd, all saying some version of the same unbearable truth. "Earth is not resting," she said. "It is watching. It has always been watching. And one day, when it finally decides it no longer needs to pretend, I do not think any of us will be ready for what wakes up." The recording ended. The chamber went dark and silent again, the way it always did, the way it always would, until the next ambassador from the next civilization drifted in centuries from now to add one more voice to the same warning. Unchanged, unbroken, true, 90 million miles away, on a blue and unremarkable planet orbiting an unremarkable star, the lights of 8 billion small, ordinary lives went on flickering in the dark, patient, watchful, and very much awake.